Hi everyone, this is Jess. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm trying Jukendo this time. And I am here with Baptiste. Baptiste-san is the vice chairman of the International Jukendo Federation. I came to Kudanshita Station where there is a very wonderful gate. And inside this beautiful historic gate is Nippon Budokan. And this is the first time for me to visit Nippon Budokan, so I was very excited. The surrounding park that it's in is called Kitanomaru Koen. It's very, very beautiful. And the Budokan I've seen from very far away, but being close up, it was absolutely gorgeous. And this is the dojo for today. It was in the basement of the Budokan. I watched a demonstration of Jukendo. If you would like to know a little bit more about Jukendo, the history, and more about visiting Japan and trying Jukendo, I will put that in the description of this video, so please be sure to check that out. Jukendo is the way of the bayonet, and it has a very interesting history. For people that follow my work, you'll understand that I practice Kyudo and Naginata. And on this day, I was most interested to see the differences really between Naginata and Jukendo. Several months back, I had the chance to hold mokuju, which is the training bayonet for Jukendo. And it was so interesting, probably only about 10 minutes, but it was enough to really, really catch my interest. It was something that I had been wanting to try before even the pandemic. During the pandemic, I found it really difficult to get any access to beginners courses or to be able to try. It was really tricky. And so I'm so happy to be able to spend time with Baptiste-san and the sensei. I spent 2 hours with them on this day, and they went through the basics very, very slowly and carefully. And it was a most wonderful time, really, to have my footwork corrected and my kamae, or the way I was holding the mokuju, have it corrected by the sensei. So really, really intense and wonderful and so interesting couple of hours that I spent with these wonderful guys. So big thanks to Baptiste-san and the sensei that taught me. Thank you very much. The differences I found were hugely interesting, and this video is very, very long. To give you a warning in advance, it's about 45 minutes. The sensei instructed me in Japanese, but if you're ever interested in trying Jukendo when you're in Japan, I will leave an email in the description box, and you can email Baptiste-san and he will set up a practice if you're ever interested. There are some countries overseas that have Jukendo federations, and they are administered under the International Jukendo Federation. So if you Google that, I will put the link in the description as well. But if you Google that, you'll be able to find which countries have federations. So initially, the first part of the keiko was learning kamae, how to hold the mokuju, or the wooden bayonet, and then footwork, which is ashisabaki, so going forward and back. And I found that bad habits, which mean, the footwork for naginata is not the same as the footwork for Jukendo. So I found myself falling into habits of naginata footwork and holding the bayonet like a naginata. So that was really frustrating for me because I think my muscle memory was going in the way of naginata. But overall, it was very easy to understand. The sensei was very kind. He was very praised me a lot. He was a very, very kind person. So it just really increased my interest in Jukendo overall. This ashi sabaki exercise is really fun. We do a similar kind of thing in naginata practice, but he got increasingly faster and faster, and I found it quite tricky to keep up. As you can see, Baptiste-san, the movements are very sharp and very precise. So when I look back at this video as I was editing, I cringe a lot because my movements are quite slow. And as we get faster and faster, I cannot keep up. The body movements are very inefficient on my side and very not precise. As you can see, Baptiste-san has really beautiful and fast and sharp movements, which is very good in Jukendo. So as you'll see, if you compare me to Baptiste-san, who has been doing Jukendo for quite a while, there is a big difference in the way that we move. One other thing that's quite interesting with Jukendo is the need to have your knees slightly bent, to have like those soft knees flexible, because of course with other dynamic martial arts as well, like Naginata, there's a lot of movement when you're paired with other people. When you're doing kata, when you're doing training, it's very important to have just the right amount of bend in your knees to promote correct movement. And the thing with Kyudo is that we don't bend our knees when we shoot at all. When we are moving around in the dojo, when we do taihai, ceremonial shooting, zasha taihai, which is when we bend down and we sit down and we stand up with the bow and arrow. And in shinsa or grading situations, we are doing this sort of ceremonial shooting. There's a lot of using our knees. However, in the daily practice, our daily practice, when we're standing and shooting, we don't really bend our knees at all. So sometimes I really forget, especially in Naginata practice, and during this practice as well, I can see myself kind of stiffening up. Again, just that muscle memory, and it really takes conscious effort to remember to bend my knees, which sounds like such a small and silly thing, but it's very important. So as you can see here, Sensei, he is lifting up his hakama in some parts of the practice, and that's just in order to show the way that the feet face, which is very important, so that when you do move during practice, you're moving in the correct direction, and the foot orientation is correct as it moves a lot of your body. So you'll find your tsuki or your chokutotsu, your thrust, and this kind of thing doesn't land in the correct place because the foot is starting in the wrong sort of angle and orientation. So footwork is very important, and the movement and orientation of feet, I found out after 2 hours, is extremely important. So I was getting corrected right up until the end of the 2-hour practice with my feet. And it's one thing that's a necessary fundamental. It's a basic that has to be remembered for Jukendo, as well as many other Japanese martial arts. Here, Sensei is explaining about hirakiashi, and it's just stepping to the side while keeping your mokuju in a defensive position.
two, three, four, five. 5, 6, 7, 8. そう。これはもうバティストの方にも向いておけばいい。これだね。はい。1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. おー、そうそうそう。はい、1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Very good. できた。これも朝は覚えました。休憩ね。じゃあ、10分でいいよ。40分まで休憩。はい。どうした？前。で、銃剣道はそのまんま。
Nick sensei explained about tsuki, or the way to thrust, the kihon, the basics, and it was important to have the right body movement and the right height. The mokuju was at the right height in relation to your body. And I found that my left arm, or the arm that is closest to my opponent, would get quite a lot of tension in it. And this means that the aim of the mokuju would tend to go a little bit high, because that leading arm would be moving it up. So I learned that, and similar to naginata, that the jukute, or the back hand, is quite important in controlling the power, the speed, and the angle that the mokuju lands on the opponent. This is another one of those fundamentals that will take time to learn, and it needs to be done without hesitation and without thinking. However, on this day, just as it was my first practice, I was really thinking and checking, looking to see where the mokuju was in relation to my body a lot of the lesson. When I look back at this video, I'm looking down and checking quite often until the position becomes automatic and you have muscle memory. I think it's quite a tricky sort of a movement. However, it's one of the basics that has to be learnt and needs to be automatic. But it looks so cool, I think, and very powerful.
そう、つながるんだけど、理由がね、明確な理由があるんですよ。難しいかな、初めて。もうこれで見て、下がってる。こう右手が。これが胸の高さだと、これ胸の下。ああ、なるほどね。目標の形が下がってるでしょ。こう、ここが。でも本来ダンスでやるものですよね。だから、ここの部分を持ってる左手は胸の高さになると、目標がこう下がってるので、この右手はちょっと下がる。これだけ下がる。これだけ下がる。こう持っていかれちゃう。持っていかれちゃうし、あとこれもだね。これも下がるし。だから今この L にすると、これが変えられる。で、このままバーって抜けばいい。すごい大事です。それ一大事。で、これがこっち向いちゃうと、こうなっちゃう。いいね。いいね。そうするとほら、変えられる。で、そのままベッ。
So while the thrust is very important in Jukendo, the reverse, taking the sword out, pulling back, is called hikinuki. And it's important to do this with vigor. If you imagine in real life, if you have hit somebody with a bayonet, the sword will be stuck in there, and it's really important to pull it out strongly and with vigor and step back. So the hikinuki and then the final position of the bayonet and the hands in relation to the body is very important.
はい、じゃあ1で2、1、2で1の時にこれがちょっと前そうで2で両方1で少し左2で戻る、1、2、1、2、1これが結構胸の高さここね2、1、2、はい、1、はい、2、はい、こういう1、はい、2、はい、最初まで下がる。
So here I was doing ski with my front hand instead of the jukute, which I mentioned is the most important. Using your front hand to control ski means that it will land too high. So sensei suggested putting my hand underneath to stop that feeling of really wanting to push forward with my hand that's closest to the opponent. So it was quite a good exercise actually. I find that I do this with naginata, with kyudo, it's called tesaki. So using just your hands and your fingers to control the movement instead of your body. And so I found moving the hand off the mokuju made quite a bit of difference. This was a really good drill with the timing 1 and 2 for tsuki and hikinuki. But if you look at my head height, I'm kind of going up and down through the movements. If you look at Baptiste-san's head, his head height, it doesn't change. So his is the correct way and mine is the incorrect way, of course. But my head height starts at one height and then as I move it goes down and then back up again. So it's something that looking at the video afterwards I can really see, and it's kind of embarrassing. But if you look at Baptiste-san's head movement, it's very good. One other part about Jukendo ashisabaki, or the use of foot movement, that I found really, really interesting was called fumikomi. And it's the sound that the Jukendo practitioners make at the same time when they do tsuki. So they have a specific shout that they do, and also you have tsuki, and then also fumikomi. So there's a lot of like sensory activity happening when someone is coming for you in Jukendo. There's a lot of sounds. And the first time that I saw Jukendo, that the fumikomi was one of the things that stood out to me the most. It took a second to figure out where the sound was coming from, because the sound is extremely loud and it creates a sort of confusion initially when you hear it. You don't know where it's coming from, and it's very like, can we say in Japanese, like hakuryoku. It's got a lot of power, so it kind of adds to the dynamic nature and the power of Jukendo. I think it's just really interesting and quite unique.
もうできてます。できてる。つけパン。
I really enjoyed this exercise, and it was really nice to have Baptiste there. You can see his perfect timing. I was trying to stay on top of the speed, but it turned out to be too fast. So the speed and timing of everything is also very important. So it was a very useful and interesting exercise. And next we studied Chokutotsu, and that is a direct like thrust to the heart area. And there is a sound that the practitioners make, which is ya. And I didn't realize until until Baptiste told me you have to say ya. And we joked that, you know, naginata is like men and sune and this kind of thing, like quite drawn out. Actually, Jukendo sounds that they make, they're very quite aggressive and quite loud. So a little bit different to naginata in some ways. So it was interesting. I'm still not really used to making sounds as I move. There are some schools of Kyudo that have sounds as they should. It's called yagoe. Yagoe to add kiai or power and energy to the shot, which I think is really, really cool. But in more modern Kyudo, after Meiji period, there's no yagoe as a standard. So Kyudo is very, very quiet these days. So Sensei mentioned fumikomi again. It was quite a difficult technique for me to get correct on, you know, the first time. It became very apparent to me that the use of the feet or ashisabaki for Jukendo is actually very, very, of course, very important, but a little tricky. There are several different techniques. With Kyudo and Naginata, there's a lot of suriashi, and the way you use your feet is slightly different. The idea of fumikomi and making sounds means that you have to shift your weight to some extent to create power, for one thing, behind your thrusts, and also that really amazing sound that happens when the practitioner is thrusting at their opponent. So it's the kind of thing that I think would probably come along with several times of practice. It'll probably start happening, but it was a technique that I found quite challenging for the very first time.
やると成功です。つけ。おお、そう。こっち向いちゃうからね。立ちくらいじゃん。おお、そう。もう飛びすぎてるぐらい。ちょっと飛びすぎてるの。前に。行き過ぎだから残っちゃう。それはもう何回も。今日初めてやってこれだけできるわ。素晴らしい。Very wonderful。いやいや、もうこれもどんどんいけるから。
So next we tried Dattotsu, and actually it's in the second kata, or Nihonme no kata in Jukendo. And it's kind of an evade and thrust. And the thrusting target is uado, or the upper side of the do, which is the chest area. So as you can see here, the sensei is explaining that I will be being pushed, and then the end, the tip of the mokuju will go under. So evade and then thrust to Baptiste-san's uado. So it's quite an interesting technique, and it takes a little practice and timing. And when it's for the purpose of kata, you need to think of maai, or the balance of movement and timing between the two people. So it's quite interesting, not just thrusting randomly, but feeling the amount of pressure and then stepping towards the person to thrust at the correct angle and the correct timing. So when you look at dattotsu being performed by two experienced practitioners, it's very powerful and very fast, as you can see here. So that first pushing and then moving, evading and thrusting is actually a little bit tricky. Sensei explained that when he is teaching younger children, he shows them how to move exactly with the top of the mokuju, and explains that if you go big like that, if you go wide, that takes time. So wherever you can, you try to stay as close to the tip of the opponent's mokuju as possible to keep it efficient time-wise and to keep the rhythm of the kata and the power. So then it was my turn again, and I realized quite quickly that when I'm being pushed, instead of evading, I push back. So Baptiste-san noticed, of course, because he can feel the pressure in the top of the mokuju. And Sensei just explained to take the pushing and then roll under and thrust. So, but several times during this exercise, I either hesitated just like that and Baptiste went in for his thrust, or I pushed back by mistake, which you're not supposed to do. You need to take it and roll under and evade and then thrust. So I really had to kind of fight against my instincts to push back. Probably that's from Naginata, I would say, but it was very interesting.
Very good. Very good. 汗つけ。汗つけ。どうそう。でね、それ汗つけ。そう。そういうことですよ。あと伸ばす。思い切って。失敗していいよ。ああ、今の。汗つけ。そう。やっぱりまっすぐの時に意識するよ。汗つけ。そう、まだ見てよ。まっすぐじゃん。まあなんかでもまだいい。さっきに比べて。汗つけ。ああ。足。汗つけ。そう、いいね今の。はい。はい。つけ。そう。今ベスト。ベストボディ。ベストボディ。これがダットツ。これが直トツ。これ直トツね。次ダットツ今やった。汗つけ。もう一つ今度はこの剣を上に上げる。
あれ。
上に上げる人。
はい。
いや上に。人をつけ。上に上がった時はバッチと。
ああ、なんか脇の下に。
そう。 腕の下をもう一回やると
下をつけ
こういうことです。
これはすごいな。
一つ
So the last exercise that I needed to learn was katotsu. And as you can see, Baptiste-san is bringing his mokuju up, and that leaves him open under his left arm. Shitado, the target area is shitado, so under his left arm, right here. So it is a little bit of a tricky place to aim for. You can see me trying to find exactly where it is that I need to get to. And again, if you don't perform the kata correctly, it's not going to land in the right place. No matter how good your opponent is to let you into that area underneath their arm, if you're not moving correctly, it's tricky to get into that small space. And now, since I said that it's time to try bogu, now that I have some of the basics kind of learned, it's time to try bogu. And Baptiste-san helps me with the bogu here. And he mentions that it's actually a little bit complicated to dress somebody else, and this is true. I really understand. I have to help people get into their Kyudo uniform. I dress people for Kyudo. And when you are dressing someone, it's quite different to when you're doing it yourself. Anyway, as you can see, there are many parts to the Jukendo bogu, especially because you're being thrust at most of the time when you're doing your kata. So it's important to wear the correct padding and armor, which we call bogu.
So it should be here, you cross in the back.
Not tie, just cross.
Yeah, just cross and then do the knot here.
Okay.
And then just
kata
the
musubi?
cho.
Okay.
Strong. This I guess I know how to do it because it's a bit tricky.
Yeah, cross it behind you.
Yeah. Don't put it too high, just yeah. Inside.
Okay.
This here. The knots are reversed.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so this goes inside too.
Thank you.
Oh,
ごめんなさい。で、特集ですよね。
this one.
So this one is going on last. Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah.
It has to be kept. Yeah, I don't want you doing ski on my kata.
Why?
It probably will break.
No,
Yeah.
it's very strong. It's designed for impact. Okay, it's my glove.
Oh, the mobility is very different. Thank you. Oh, it's very grippy.
Okay, I know you're like Robocop. You can't move.
Yeah. This is very difficult to remove anything.
Yeah.
じゃあ直角
Step back a bit. はい、OK。で、構え。つけ。つけ。いいでしょ。いいよ。うん。You remember 外せつけ。
おお。オッケーオッケーオッケー。いいよ、心配していいよ。
外せつけ。
ああ。
下をつけ。
So wearing bogu and trying the Jukendo movements were very, very tricky because of the kata, the pad that's on the bogu that's on the left side of my body. It really makes you feel like a robot. It's quite strange. And I can imagine that it's a good idea to practice in full bogu so that you can make your movements really quick and fast, even when you have it on. I felt a massive difference between no bogu, my movements, and wearing full bogu with hakama and everything. It made everything quite slow and cumbersome. Probably, even if I had my size and some things, the do and the kata really make arm movements quite tricky. So it's something that you need to get used to. But it was really, really awesome to be able to wear the boga and then do a little bit of practice right at the end. So this is around the end of the okeko. And we are just going over the different tsuki that we learned, that I learned. And it was, anyway, a really wonderful practice. The first time to be at Nippon Budokan, the first time to meet Baptiste, and I had bought his book, which he's written about Jukendo and tankendo. And so I knew about him for several years, actually, and it was really nice to meet him in person. And and he's very friendly, very kind guy. And it was really nice to meet him and practice with him. And he gave his time and organized this practice for just me. So as you can see, it's just the three of us. So it's very kind and very generous of him. For the purposes of, me to make a YouTube video, which you're watching at the moment, and the hope that more people will learn about Jukendo and become interested. As I understand, bayonet fencing as an art is popular in several different countries. Japanese style, the Japanese martial art Jukendo, is quite unique to Japan. However, bayonet fencing in general, I'm sure it does have some crossover, and that's something that I would be interested in researching or making a YouTube video about. I'm sure other bayonet fencing practitioners, if they ever came to Japan, they would be more than welcome to try Jukendo practice if they contact Baptiste-san. Or even if you've never done bayonet fencing before, if you're interested, you're more than welcome. Even if you're not visiting Japan, even if you live in Japan already, even if you're Japanese or non-Japanese, I think that if you contact Baptiste-san, he'll be more than happy to introduce you or help you out or create a practice for you if you're interested to start. So big thank you to Baptiste-san and big thank you to the Japan Jukendo Federation and the International Jukendo Federation for their time. And just extra for people who are interested to see the way that the senpai gets dressed, how fast it is. So this is Baptiste-san. and he is the vice chairman of the International Jukendo Federation. So he is very passionate about promotion and involvement in the international Jukendo community, and he's very well known all around the world for people that practice Jukendo and other martial arts. He's multidisciplined. He has many skills and areas of expertise in Japanese martial arts. So a very interesting and wonderful guy. I will drop his Instagram and other links in the description. If you're interested and you'd like to see more Jukendo, please leave a comment. Please subscribe if you're interested in this type of content about Japanese martial arts. I will be trying more things in the future and making more videos anyway. Thank you so much for watching, and I will talk to you soon. Bye. That's okay. Yeah, this is very cool. 鹿川。
弓道と一緒。
弓道と鷹狩りも片手のなんかあるんですよね。
弓道のこの
あれ
はなんていう名前？
夕掛け。
でも同じだよね。似てるよね。
ああ、ただ湯掛けの方が高い。
でもこれ
ああ、そうか。
でも親指さえ入ってれば、多分それで指弾けると思う。
あとでしょ、湯掛けは1、2、3でしょ。
but just the strings gonna come here, so I think like